Okay, so welcome everyone. My name's Eloisa Ramos, and I'm here with my daughter Sonia. Hi, say hi, Sonia.
Hi.
My friend Teresa and Connie. Hi, Connie.
Hello.
So we're glad to continue with our study of A Course in Miracles, and we left off on Chapter 1, Section 4, The Escape from Darkness. So let's just take paragraph by paragraph. I'll go ahead and just start with 1. The escape from darkness involves 2 stages. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. And 2, this step usually entails fear. Oh, excuse me, that was line 2. That wasn't the second step. Let me just start over. The escape from darkness involves 2 stages. First, the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This step usually entails fear. Second, the recognition that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. This step brings escape from fear. When you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy. Okay. Okay, so any ideas on this paragraph? Any thoughts? Okay, so when we talk about darkness, we're talking about not knowing, okay? Because remember that God is everything. God is absolute truth, and God is all-knowing. So when we are one with God, we are in a state of grace, which is a state of knowing the truth of what we are, one with God. Okay, there's no separation there, no perception. It's just a knowing, a knowledge. Okay, so, and that would be light. That would be the idea of enlightenment, or the idea of non-duality. Okay, there's only light. There is no such thing as darkness, because darkness, we tend to think of as the opposite of light. So, but because we are perceiving separation and perceiving opposites and perceiving that we are in a world of duality, where there's conflict and there's fear, and of course we see darkness. So this is the escape from darkness, which is not knowing the truth, and it involves 2 stages. So the first stage is to recognize that darkness cannot hide. Okay, and this is this is the idea of believing that what is out of mind, let's see, it's the idea of the unconscious mind. Okay, so in other words, it's the idea that, oh, there's some things that I would rather just not know. And therefore, my house is so messy, I would rather not look at it. So I'm just going to throw all the junk into my dark basement and not deal with it. Okay. And nobody ever goes there. I close the door. It's dark. I don't have to go down there. And now I have this house that is not messy. And, there's light. And you can think of that as a conscious mind. Okay. But then I have this whole basement full of junk that I just don't want to deal with. Okay. Brings back bad memories, whatever. Okay. So, so the first one is the recognition that darkness cannot hide. So even if I throw all the junk down there, okay, I know it's down there. Okay, so maybe I don't keep track of every little thing that I threw down there, But I know I've been throwing stuff down there because I did that consciously. And so even if I think that I can hide it, I really can't hide it. Okay. I can try to forget it's there, but for goodness sakes, it's part of my house. It's in the basement. So, um, so I really cannot hide it. And that's the main thing about the unconscious, is that it finds a way of coming out. So our deepest, darkest secrets, or the things that we just don't want to look at, have a way of showing up in our lives in different forms, because it's an unhealed problem. We throw all the problems in there we don't want to deal with. And because they're unhealed, they're actually a call for love. They're actually looking for light. It's still part of our consciousness. And any little chance they can, they will pop up into our conscious mind. Now they may show up as, something outside, so we can say, oh, that has nothing to do with me. Okay. Or they may show up in our relationships, like, oh my God, it's like this person is just like my mother, or this person is just like my old boyfriend. So it's like we can't get away from it, even though we change, where we live, we change our friends, we change how we dress, we change everything. These things still keep coming up. So that's the idea, that darkness cannot hide. So the truth, in this case, not absolute truth, but the truth that we are afraid of, will keep coming up because we keep trying to hide it and push it down. And that's why this step entails fear. Because anything we don't want to look at, we're going to be afraid of for some reason. There's got to be fear there if we don't want to look at it and we want to hide it. So the second step is the recognition that there's nothing you want to hide, even if you could. Okay, so if my house is all messy and oh my gosh, I'm having people come over and it's just too much to clean, and my gut says, just throw everything in the closet, just throw everything in the closet. Okay, if I recognize, okay, that I don't need to hide anything. Okay, so my house is not perfect. Okay, that's my own judgment. And, imperfection can be like, oh, I haven't vacuumed in 3 days. So I mean, the carpet is clean, but, I know I haven't vacuumed in 3 days, to imperfect is like, I've never, ever, ever cleaned my carpet, in 10 years, kind of a thing. So what imperfection is completely a judgment to us. So friends come over and they don't notice. They can't tell that I didn't vacuum the carpet in 3 days. Okay. So the recognition that there's nothing to hide is understanding that the way things are, I'm not going to judge the way things are. And I'm not going to be afraid that everybody that's coming over is going to judge me because I have not, cleaned under the tape. I have not cleaned under the dressers or something like that. So, uh, so the recognition that there's nothing to hide, even if I could, is freedom from fear. Because I'm not going to be afraid of my own self-judgment, and I'm not going to be afraid of others judging me, because I'm believing that I am imperfect and have changed myself from how God created me, because I'm basing all that judgment on what I have failed to do. That's, not living up to my standards, or your standards or the world standards or whatever. So it's always about comparison. And if I can step away from that and recognize that I am created loving and lovable, then I don't sweat the other stuff. And if I haven't gotten around to cleaning and vacuuming, oh, well, that's just how it is. I was doing other things that were more important. So that's why number 4 says this step brings escape from fear. So when you have become willing to hide nothing, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but will also understand peace and joy, because peace and joy are without any fear. And therefore, we can enter into communion, which is joining with others without any fear and without any loss of peace or joy. Because we're just going to be accepting everything as it is. We're not going to be expecting others to have their house perfectly clean, because we're not expecting that of ourselves. So we're dropping expectations, we're dropping comparisons, and we're dropping judgments. And therefore, we're free of all the fear of being rejected because of the way we look, because of the way we act, because we don't have what we should have, because we haven't succeeded as much as we would have wanted to, or people thought we would. And so that's all comparison. So there's a lot of pressure that's just constantly poof, and you can just be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
also just to add on, also a lot of guilt, because what you were saying with the judgment, we just want to shove everything like in the closet, like you were giving in your example, because at least in my experience, it's just guilt. Like I don't want to look at it. I don't want to see it, out of sight, out of mind. But really the fear is just guilt and all the judgment. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the guilt comes from the judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I had a different experience this morning. I noticed it was just like all this free floating anxiety. And I noticed, in talking about this, that I was just really trying to just push that away and just move on. Okay, let's just get present. But noticing I didn't want to look at it, or I didn't want to take the time. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that happens to any of you, just like, okay, we'll just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I was saying about you. Your house is messy, so your mind is messy. So you just want to throw it in the closet and not look at it.
So needing to look at every little thing.
And yes, so the
It's
course
painful.
says, we're not just responsible, for what we do. Okay. We're responsible for what we think. So our thoughts themselves are like things, and if you think of our mind as the holy temple of God, and we crowd it with all these thoughts that are disturbing to our peace, to our joy, and then when they show up, we don't want to see them. We don't even want to look at them. We just want to throw them in the closet and move on.
I just want to escape and
Yes.
study the book.
Yes. Yes.
That
So
will help.
well, that's our pattern. That's the tendency. That's why
Yeah,
we distinguish between conscious and unconscious.
yeah.
Because, and psychologists say the unconscious is like 90% and the conscious is like 10%. So we've done a really, really good job of not looking at stuff. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but if we don't take the time to look at it, maybe you don't have time right now because you're coming to this group or whatever, but make a note of it. And then when you do
Mhm.
have time, take a look at it, because you, it's really worth, I find it to be very worthwhile, because I'm not adding more clutter into my basement.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the idea is to undo the error, and you want to take all that clutter out. But if we just keep dumping more in there, you see, we could be here a few more lifetimes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, but that you noticed is good, Connie. That's really good.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it's basically, the never ending to-do list got going in my mind. As
Mhm.
we're going out of town tomorrow, and so it just created a lot of anxiety. But just saying that out loud helps me to see, oh, that's what all that is, just about the future. So, yeah, it'll get done
Mhm. 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 Yep.
or
Okay.
not.
Or not. Either way. Okay, number 2. Who wants to go?
I think
Oh,
it's Sonia.
Sonia. Okay.
okay, 2. Holiness can never be really hidden in darkness, but you can deceive yourself about it. This deception makes you fearful because you realize in your heart it is a deception, and you exert enormous efforts to establish its reality. The miracle sets reality where it belongs. Reality belongs only to spirit, and the miracle acknowledges only truth. It thus dispels illusions about yourself and puts you in communion with yourself and God. The miracle joins in the atonement by placing the mind in the service of the Holy Spirit. This establishes the proper function of the mind and corrects its errors, which are merely lacks of love. Your mind can be possessed by illusions, but spirit is eternally free. If a mind perceives without love, it perceives an empty shell and is unaware of the spirit within. But the atonement restores spirit to its proper place. The mind that serves spirit is invulnerable.
Yeah. Okay. Any thoughts there?
Mm.
Okay. So, in this paragraph, it starts with an assumption. Okay. And this is the thing about the Course in Miracles, and that's why it can be very hard to read and understand, is because the assumptions that we have learned are upside down to the assumptions that the Course in Miracles starts with. So for example, holiness can never be really hidden in darkness, but you can deceive yourself about it. Okay, so what it's saying is that we are holy. We were created holy because God is holy. And therefore it is light. And that light, which we are, can never be really hidden in darkness. Okay, but we can't think that it can. So that's self-deception. And so what it's saying is, you can judge yourself bad and guilty and imperfect and sinful. You can do that, okay? But you're going to be deceiving yourself, because that's not how God created you. And 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 then it says this deception makes you fearful because you realize in your heart it is a deception, and you exert enormous efforts to establish its reality. Okay, so what's really, really hard to accept is it's not that we are bad. Okay, for some reason that seems to be normal, but it's that we are really just good and loving. Um, and so the thing that's fearful about studying this course that might bring up fear is that we have been deceiving ourselves about what we are for such a long time that to recognize the truth, and we know it deep down in our heart, we know the truth, is actually fearful. So that's why love is fearful. That's why going deep into that unconscious, going into the basement, can be very fearful, because we think there's something really terrible under there, but there's not. It's just love. And but it's because we're having to let go of this deception that we have accepted not as a deception, but as being true, that we are bad, evil people. Okay. And it takes a lot of effort to keep establishing that. I mean, we really have to, we have to try really hard to be bad. I know for most people, they say, oh, man, it's really easy to sin, but it's really hard not to sin, you know. But it's actually against our nature to be unloving, and the miracle sets reality where it belongs. So the reality is our nature is loving. And this reality belongs only to spirit, because that is what we are in truth. And therefore, the miracle acknowledges only truth. It thus dispels illusions about yourself. I'm worthless. I'm no good. I'm such an idiot. Oh my God. I'm disappointing. Whatever. And puts you in communion with yourself and God. So it means that there's no separation there. The miracle joins in the atonement by placing the mind in the service of the Holy Spirit. So the miracle helps us to recognize that separation never happened. We did not change ourselves in spirit. Even when we do terrible things, we cannot change how God created us as spirit, because spirit is eternal. And that's why accepting the atonement places the mind in the service of the Holy Spirit, which is our communication with God. And this establishes the proper function of the mind and corrects its errors, which are merely lacks of love. And so the proper function of the mind is to communicate love, rather than lack of love. And so it says your mind can be possessed by illusions, okay, but spirit is eternally free. So all of the things of this world cannot really imprison spirit, cannot change what we are in truth. If a mind perceives without love, it perceives an empty shelf and is unaware of the spirit within. And that's what happens when we judge and when we compare and when we feel guilty, is that our mind is perceiving without love. And so it's perceiving separation, it's experiencing fear, and it's not going to what is really within ourselves and others as spirit, but we're just looking at the body, at the personality. Yeah, imperfect. Okay. So, but the atonement restores spirit to its proper place, which is the essence of what we are. And the mind that serves spirit is invulnerable. So connecting to that self-identification as spirit, as an eternal being of love and light, is what gives the mind the sense of invulnerability. safety, and no fear. Okay, anything more on that one? Okay, who's next? Connie? Is that you?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. Darkness is lack of light, as sin is lack of love. It has no unique properties of its own. It is an example of the quote unquote scarcity belief from which only error can proceed. Truth is always abundant. Those who perceive and acknowledge that they have everything have no needs of any kind. The purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you, or rather to restore it to your awareness. You were given everything when you were created, just as everyone was.
Okay, so anything there that's not clear?
No, I mean, darkness has no unique property. It has nothing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how does darkness come about then?
Well, it's created through my thoughts.
It,
Yes, and what are you doing with your thoughts?
I'm making a choice to take them to the Holy Spirit or not,
Because why?
because I want to be in the light.
Sonia,
I want to own who and what I truly am.
yeah, that's right. Sonia,
The truth.
what were you going to say, Sonia?
I was gonna say it's for me, it's because of denial, because I don't want to see the the truth. It's just I'm denying, and the denial is the darkness, basically.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm,
it's nothing. It has no power of its own,
mm-hmm.
no unique properties of its own.
Yes, and the denial is a lack of love
Mhm,
because that's what everything is. It's love, right?
mhm,
So to deny love is to lack love, to believe that we have lost love. Um, and so we believe that we are without truth, without light. So truth, we think that we can deny truth, okay, but we can't actually deny truth. We can only believe. We only lose the awareness of it, just like it says over here. It says the purpose of the atonement is to restore everything to you, or rather to restore it to your awareness. Because we don't actually lose what we are. We can't lose what we are. What God created cannot be changed, cannot be destroyed. It cannot, it's eternal. The only thing that we do when we deny and block, we put a block to that awareness of love's presence with these other thoughts, by giving these other thoughts attention and believing them. So this all happens in our imagination. It never affects truth. Yeah. Mhm.
mhm,
And it's easy to see that darkness has no properties of its own, because when we experience nighttime here on Earth, planet Earth, that's just because the other side of the Earth is blocking the sunlight. It's not because the sunlight's not there. Yeah.
mhm.
So we can turn a blind eye to truth and say, oh, I have made truth disappear.
That seems to be the way of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Truth is, yeah.
Yes, and that's exactly why we made the world, to see what we want to see, okay? Because it's an illusion, and there's no other way that we could be seeing separation and conflict and fear and division and war and death, and because all of that is not what God is, and therefore it's not reality. So it's in, ultimately, I think it's in chapter 1, it talks about the beginning of the separation. That's, a decision to perceive rather than to know, is what the world is. Okay. Number 4. Yeah, Teresa.
The emptiness engendered by fear must be replaced by forgiveness. That is what the Bible means by there is no death, and why I could demonstrate that death does not exist. I came to fulfill the law by reinterpreting it. The law itself, if properly understood, offers only protection. It is those who have not yet changed their minds who brought the hellfire concept into it. I assure you that I will witness for anyone who lets me, and to whatever extent he permits it. Your witnessing demonstrates your belief and thus strengthens it. Those who witness for me are expressing through their miracles that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation in favor of the abundance they have learned belongs to them.
Okay, anything there?
What does the hellfire concept mean? I don't really know anything about the Bible, so I always get a little confused whenever there's stuff referencing it.
Oh, good, thank you, because I don't have a whole lot of reference for the
Yeah, I have no
Bible, too.
idea.
Yeah, so the hellfire idea has to do with kind of the way that the preachers used to preach to people as God being this fearful God that's going to send you to hell if you don't obey.
Mm.
And so the idea that God is loving becomes very distorted, because God was also believed to be a God of judgment and vengeance, and you better that demanded obedience and sacrifice, and if you didn't, you were going to go to hell and burn there for eternity. Basically, this is punishment, basically. So so the so this paragraph kind of continues with the idea from the previous paragraphs when where it talks about the scarcity belief, that because it's a belief that darkness does exist in and of itself, meaning that evil, that there is a devil, and that evil is an entity of its own that opposes God and that does battle with God. Light and darkness battle it out, right? In Star Wars. so it's the error that 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 lack of love, that darkness can oppose and can beat, and therefore usurp the power of light, and can kill truth, kill God, rather than just, oh, I close my eyes and I think that I have killed God because I can't see God anymore. I believe I'm separate from God, and I have put God somewhere out in in the sky, but not here in the world.
Okay. So what I'm understanding from this is that since it says it is those who have not yet changed their minds who brought the hellfire concept into it, would be those who want to keep the idea of death as real,
Yes,
right?
and who want to keep the idea of separation from God as real. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, because the atonement is a change in mind, because we accepted that when we incarnate into a body and believe we are a body, we believe we are separate individual people, and that we are not of one mind, and therefore our interests conflict, and therefore I am justified in attacking you and in killing you if my life is threatened. And so it's the belief that death is real because the body dies, because I'm interpreting the body to be life and not eternal life. So I have basically believe that I have annihilated eternal life, because in this world, death seems to have reality.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one of the major teachings in the New Testament. Jesus dying on the cross and resurrecting on the third day is it's what's referring to line number 2. That's what the Bible means by, quote, there is no death, unquote, and why I could demonstrate that death does not exist. His resurrection from the death was the demonstration that death does not exist.
Mhm.
And that's why the whole Course in Miracles really emphasizes practicing forgiveness, because when we believe we are separate, we are going to be fearful. And there's an emptiness which goes with believing we are separate, because we're going to believe, when push comes to shove, everybody has to survive. And it's going to be that survival instincts that says, me first and F you, because not everybody can survive. So that's the scarcity belief up here in the previous paragraph that it's talking about, that only the fittest can survive. So you have this kind of dog eat dog world, because we believe in scarcity. We believe there's a scarcity of resources, and we have to protect interests, whether they're oil interests or whether they're water, whatever natural resource we think we need to survive. We have to compete and battle for it, because we believe in scarcity, because that's what the body is. It's a limited thing that that needs things to survive. So mhm.
Mhm.
So let's see. And so the last line there, those who witness for me, and me would be Jesus, who represents love and eternal life, are expressing through their miracles that they have abandoned the belief in deprivation, in scarcity, in favor of the abundance they have learned belongs to them, because as spirit, we are and have everything, and don't have to be afraid of scarcity, because we're provided for. We're not relying on our own limited, intelligence, trying to figure out, I have to get a job. I have to, make sure that I put food on the table. I have to try to survive on my own. The recognition that we are all spirit says, okay, I'm not giving myself life. Who am I kidding here? I'm not the creator of my life. I have a source that is my creator. So why am I so worried? I think St. Francis was the one that said, he said, look at all the lilies of the field, and they're not worried. They're not trying to survive. So yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, let me see. Okay, so next paragraph. Nope, I went to the wrong.
No, that's
not
right.
Is that correct?
Wholeness and spirit is next.
Oh, good. Okay, so it's the next section. We're on section 5 now. Okay. All right. So number 1, the miracle is much like the body in that both are learning aids to facilitate a state in which they become unnecessary. When spirit's original state of direct communication is reached, neither the body nor the miracle serves any purpose. While you believe you are in a body, however, you can choose between loveless and miraculous channels of expression. You can make an empty shell, but you cannot express nothing at all. You can wait, delay, paralyze yourself, or reduce your creativity almost to nothing, but you cannot abolish it. You can destroy your medium of communication, but not your potential. You did not create yourself. Okay. Okay, so creative power, the world likes to talk about power and likes to talk about creativity and all of that, but ultimately you did not create yourself, and creative power is of God. So to exercise creative power is to share in that creative power that comes from God. We don't make it by ourselves. And so that's why the miracle comes from beyond time and space. It does not come from us, little self us. It comes from the source of love. And so, so the miracle, much like the body, is that both are learning aids for facilitating a state in which they become unnecessary. So the miracle, like the body, can be used for learning the lessons that we're here to learn, which are lessons in forgiveness, which ultimately heal the mind. And it's the mind that is sick. And it's the mind that needs the miracles, because that's how the mind returns to knowledge, to recognize the truth about what it is. And so line 2 says, when spirit's original state of direct communication is reached, neither the body nor the miracle serves any purpose. So both the body and the miracle can be used for the purpose of healing the mind, who has lost direct communication. As it was its original state, to communicate directly with source. So while you believe you are in a body, however, you can choose between loveless and miraculous channels of expression. Yes, so when we express, we can either express love, which would be coming from the source, which would then be helping us to recognize that we are one with source, because that's what we're sharing. Or we can choose to express what is a call for love, which is basically, a choice to not forgive, a choice to hold a grievance, a choice to be in fear, and to hold on to the identity of being separate from each other and from God. And so we choose what we want to express. And in that decision, we are either healing the mind, or we are making sure it doesn't heal, or at least postponing the healing anyway. I mean, ultimately it's going to heal, but we decide the pace and time. It says you can make an empty shell, but you cannot express nothing at all. So it's the body. The Course says the body is neutral, but the mind is not neutral. The mind will either express truth, or it will be a block to the expression of truth. And so let's see. So you can wait, delay, paralyze yourself, or reduce your creativity almost to nothing. Yeah. So that's what denial is. It's just, all it serves is a purpose of extending time.
So what do you think is happening when people go into dementia or Alzheimer's? Is that a choice in the mind to just dissociate, so to speak, do you think? Or
Well, just remember that the belief in separation is in itself a form of dementia. It's a forgetting of what we truly are. So, I mean, when someone is diagnosed with Alzheimer's, with dementia, with mental illness, it's only because the symptoms have become so severe that they've become disruptive to their everyday, functioning. But we all are basically, that way too. Because we're all in some form of denial. We're all, yeah. And and I think all sickness is really just the expression of the decision that we've made here. See, you can choose between loveless and miraculous channels of expression. So, if we're choosing sickness, we're basically denying the truth, and we are making a choice to hold on to the grievance rather than to love and forgive. And that's the bottom line. I'm serious. That's the bottom line of all illness. I had a chance to work with my sister, who had who went to the hospital. She's had, for a year and a half, she's had all this redness and inflammation and irritation on her face. And she never told me about it until she says, oh, I ended up going. And I'm like, well, why'd you wait so long? She says, well, yeah, that's what they asked me in the hospital. She says, I just couldn't stand it anymore. I had put up with it for a year and a half, and finally I just couldn't stand it anymore. And of course, there wasn't anything they could do. They had to run all these tests, and, and she still had more appointments to run tests. And so we started working on it. And there was guilt under there. It was all just guilt and embarrassment. Yeah, so there was a lot of past guilt around some of the things that happened with her children, and she didn't feel that she had protected them, and so we released that, and it cleared up. It just cleared up. Because that was the unforgiveness that she was holding on towards herself. Towards herself, yeah. 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 And yeah. So let's see. You can destroy your medium of communication, the body, but not your potential. So because you did not create yourself. So that means that even in death, that's not the self that's being destroyed. It's only the medium of communication. You see? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. So number 2.
Okay. 2. The basic decision of the miracle-minded is not to wait on time any longer than is necessary. Time can waste as well as be wasted. The miracle worker, therefore, accepts the time control factor gladly. He recognizes that every collapse of time brings everyone closer to the ultimate release from time, in which the Son and the Father are one. Equality does not imply equality now. When everyone recognizes that he has everything, individual contributions to the sonship will no longer be necessary.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Any questions on that?
I'm getting a little confused about number 5. Equality does not imply equality now.
Mhm.
Because I know the holy instant would be the release, right? Is that
Yes,
right?
it's a yeah. So the holy instant would be the recognition that we are all one. There's no separation. So yeah, everyone is equal. But as long as we believe we are individuals in a world, then we're going to believe in individual contributions. And what it means is that some people are going to be choosing to not stall in time. So the basic decision is not to wait on time any longer than is necessary. And so for me, the faster and quicker I can release all this stuff and clean that basement out, hey, that's where I want to go. Show me a quicker way to do this and I'm there. Okay. And because time is really suffering. I mean, as much as we want to believe that time is this, illusion of um, of being independent and self-sufficient and taking pleasure in our accomplishments and all of that, it comes with a lot of suffering. It comes with a lot of pain, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of hard work, because it's dualistic. Okay. So so the miracle worker accepts the time control factor gladly, because what it says is that as long as we believe we're an individual in the world, we have control of the time. That's what we decide. So individually, we decide how many more lifetimes do I want to be here? and so collapsing time is what the miracle does. And in the end, the more that each one of us individually does that, then it brings everyone. See, nobody's going to be left behind because it's one mind. So it's the self-healing is contributing to everyone. Okay, now for a while there, I'll admit that for a while there, I was like, oh, come on. I was trying to get those people around me to like, oh, come on, you got to do your work. I can't do all the work for all of us here. I was really trying to look at it in terms of, you got to do your share because I'm doing my share. But it's not like that at all. Okay, because it's one mind. It doesn't really it's not about comparison. So if you do your work and you heal the mind and you're committed to that, it is going to benefit everyone. But it doesn't mean that that they're not going to have to do their own healing. There's still, people are still going to have to do their own healing, but it's going to make it easier. It's just like Jesus, okay? He accomplished everything already. So basically, once we recognize, oh man, why am I trying to heal my mind then? If Jesus already healed the mind, you know, I'm completely healed. Woohoo! I'm done. You know, I mean, I mean, if I could just 100% realize and recognize that, that would be it. Okay. So, but the recognition every collapse of time brings to everyone closer to the ultimate release from time, in which the Son and the Father are one. And remember, there's just one Son. And remember that the separation never happened. So what the heck are we healing? Well, we're just healing the illusion that we're sick, because the truth has never changed. We have never changed. So our mind has never been sick. That's all part of the dream. And the more each individual contributes to waking up, then when everyone recognizes that he has everything, individual contributions to the sonship will no longer be necessary, because we will not be seeing ourselves as individual. We will not, I will look at you and I will say, oh, there's me, you know? So, yeah. Okay. Number 3.
Okay. When the atonement has been completed, all talents will be shared by all the sons of God. God is not partial. All his children have his total love, and all his gifts are freely given to everyone alike. Quote, except ye become as little children, end of quote, means that unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in his true relationship with the Father. The specialness of God's sons does not stem from exclusion, but from inclusion. All my brothers are special. If they believe they are deprived of anything, their perception becomes distorted. When this occurs, the whole family of God, or the sonship, is impaired in its relationships.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you see there, honey, that you said, oh dear?
Oh, I thought it said when one believes they are deprived of anything, and that the whole family of God, or the sonship, is impaired.
Well, but it says that's line number 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says they.
Yes, and then it says their perception becomes distorted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yes, so all my brothers are special, but the way that we tend to look at specialness is one of exclusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And once we make specialness one of exclusion, we are looking at scarcity and deprivation, because in order for one to be special, the other one has to be deprived.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of people say, when we see someone who's a little bit different, or who has issues, mental issues or whatever, that he's special, rather than saying something derogatory. Yeah, people will say, well, I think he's a little special.
Yes, but what they're saying is he's different.
He's
right?
different.
Yeah. And that's coming from the idea of exclusion. They're making them separate from people
And
that are not different.
somehow less than, but calling them special. They're making them less than by saying that, but that they're special.
Well, remember that in a dualistic world, the extremes are special.
Yeah.
Yeah. So whether you mean positive or negative, it's still exclusion.
No, I know. It just seems like a strange way to put that. Oh,
Well,
they're
that
special.
yes. So what we tend to do, and we feel guilty, you see. So when we see someone is different from us, there's going to be guilt. And then what we try to do is not look at the guilt, but try to compensate
Mm,
and say, okay, we're just going to call them
mhm.
special. That way, we're not going to hurt their feelings by saying, oh my goodness, you're not the same, you're less than, or you're different. Do you see what I'm
Well, and it
saying?
makes us feel special by thinking that we're saying they're special. Do you see what I'm saying? Like it makes us, it's a whole ego trip for us to say that then. Oh, they're special, like we're rising above something and they're saying that they're, I don't know, I'm getting too far out there, I think, but it's all just, yeah,
Mm-hmm,
a bunch of separation.
mm-hmm. Yeah, exclusion. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but for God's sons, then the specialness comes from inclusion, from
Mhm,
sameness.
mhm,
And if we're going to look at sameness, that we're going to have to look at spirit. We can't look at the physical abilities of what people can and cannot do with their bodies or with their um, functioning, cognitive
mhm,
functioning.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
because that's the outer shell that
mhm.
we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's good.
Yeah, the line 4 is really, really important here. It
Mm,
says, unless you fully recognize your complete dependence on God, you cannot know the real power of the Son in
mhm,
his true relationship with the Father. Okay, because all power comes from God, all creative power comes from God. And without us recognizing that we are co-creators with God, sharing that power of God, we will believe that we have usurped the power of God and have now offended God by taking God's power away and becoming creators ourselves. So what
Yep.
we've done is we've made creation scarce. What we're saying is, if I want to believe that I can create, then I'm going to have to take that creative power away from God, because God somehow didn't share that with me, because we're separate. And so I have just made the creative power special and scarce. Which, how much power is that now? I've just made it scarce. So I've basically made power powerlessness. All because I don't want to accept that I am as God created me, and therefore my life is completely dependent on God. Because we tend to look at dependency as for the ego, dependency is a subservient position. And one for a position maybe for children who can't do anything for themselves, for babies, and therefore who are, you could say, powerless. And that would not pass for the ego trying to make us believe that it is God.
That's a powerful sentence. Complete dependence. I mean, you can't hold out a smidge.
Yes.
No, I
Because
know.
well, how can you hold out a smidge if everything comes from God? Everything.
Well, you can't, but we certainly try and
We
trick
do.
ourselves into thinking we're doing that. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we can't take credit as an ego. We cannot take credit for anything if everything comes from God. So much for our worldly accomplishments. You know, they're not ours. Everything comes from God. Everything is given to us by God. There would be no such thing as individual accomplishment. So much for trophies, so much for gold medals, so much for, all of that. So much for being the first to go to Mars. So much for everything that drives us to achieve and succeed and accomplish. We just have to be thrown out the window.
Mm.
So yeah, it puts us in a very humble position. And the ego doesn't want that. That's one quality the ego does not have. It can definitely be humiliated, but it's not humble.
Humiliated.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
definitely.
Teresa, you're quiet. You
I
got
know,
to share?
having a quiet day.
Okay, is it your turn to read now?
It is.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 4, ultimately, every member of the family of God must return. The miracle calls him to return because it blesses and honors him, even though he may be absent in spirit. God is not mocked, is not a warning, but a reassurance. God would be mocked if any of his creations lacked holiness. The creation is whole, and the mark of wholeness is holiness. Miracles are affirmations of sonship, which is a state of completion and abundance.
Yes, 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 yes. So no one is left behind here. Um, and so God's creations are holy, and to deny that is just to waste time, because ultimately every member of the family of God must return to their original state of awareness of their holiness, because the Son of God is holy and it is one mind. So it is one holy Christ mind. And the miracle calls him to return to that, because it's a demonstration of the power of forgiveness. And to forgive means that you have accepted forgiveness. So it's recognizing the innocence and the holiness of the mind. So for my sister to be able to start off feeling guilty about all, that happened, and then in the end to go back and say, no, I don't feel guilty. It means that she let go of the judgment and she forgave herself. And the symptoms cleared up for her. So, it blesses and honors him. And, the deservability is something that gets in the way. We don't accept the miracles sometimes because we don't think we're deserving of them. And to receive blessings means that we are not making the judgment that we're deserving or not deserving. So we're letting go of the judgment. So forgiveness is accepting the truth of our holiness. And when the mind accepts that, the mind is healed. And the body, since the body is just the instrument of communication, it has to reflect the state of the mind. And so the body would have to reflect a healed mind, which would be a healed body or a healed relationship, you know. Okay. Okay. Anything more? Okay. So number 5, whatever is true is eternal and cannot change or be changed. Spirit is therefore unalterable because it is already perfect. But the mind can elect what it chooses to serve. The only limit put on its choice is that it cannot serve 2 masters. If it elects to do so, the mind can become the medium by which spirit creates along the line of its own creation. If it does not freely elect to do so, it retains its creative potential, but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. As a result, it imprisons, because such are the dictates of a tyrant. Such are the dictates of tyrants. To change your mind means to place it at the disposal of true authority. Okay, so the first line is, I think it's pretty clear. Whatever is true is eternal and cannot be changed or unchanged. And for that reason, spirit is therefore not subject to change. It was created perfect, okay? But the mind, which is the mechanism for decision making, can elect what it chooses to serve. So it can choose to serve spirit, or it can choose to communicate or serve a tyrant, the dictates of a tyrant, which would be the ego. The only limit on the mind is that it cannot serve 2 masters. So we can't reconcile those 2 masters. We can't try to, represent both. We can't represent both love and fear. We're either serving love, communicating love, or we're serving fear and communicating fear, expressing fear. Okay, so if we do not choose to communicate spirit, then the mind retains its creative potential, but places itself under tyrannous rather than authoritative control. Okay, and that's why the idea of imprisonment comes in. As a result, it imprisons because such are the dictates of tyrants. So fear, you can think of fear, you can think of love as true authority, and you can think of fear as false authority, like a tyrant. And fear is very much like a tyrant. When you think of survival mode, most of us, when we go into survival mode and start pumping adrenaline, it's an instinct. We call it an instinct, and it's not like we feel we have a choice. It's like we're driven to fight, to flee, or to freeze. And for that reason, it feels like we have lost our free will, like we don't have a choice. You know, I sometimes hear people say, for example, well, of course I'm going to defend myself. What do you expect me to do? You know, not defend myself? Like, you're asking the ridiculous, you know? It's only natural that I defend myself. So so that's, I mean, that's basically the dictate of the tyrant. And so I am imprisoned by my instinctive reactions because I'm believing I don't have a choice to forgive. And therefore, I'm believing I don't have a choice to choose love. And so to change your mind means to place it at the disposal of true authority, which recognizes my free will. And so, you know, I can choose true authority or I cannot, but it's a loving, it's a loving authority.
Wow,
That's
that word tyrant really resonates for me. You know, it makes me think just anytime I'm in anxiety or not in a state of peace, I can just go, oh, it's the tyrant of the ego. It's just, that's a powerful word. Yeah.
yes, and a lot of times it shows up almost like a gravitational pull or a
Yeah.
yes, as if I am being forced
Yeah.
against my will.
A pull.
A pull, yeah, it's a push or a
Totally.
pull.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and guilt is really the tyrant. Guilt is exerts a lot of pressure, a lot of force, yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
pull, captures our attention. Fear captures our attention. You know, we're in freeze mode, um, you know, almost paralyzed. So, um, yeah. So, I mean, it's an experience of being imprisoned, but again, it's an illusion of what is not true, but it feels true. And then we have to work with the feelings because the feelings are just past conditioning. So we have to work on letting go all the past conditioning. And a lot of that past conditioning and feelings is just guilt. It's judgment and guilt. But a lot of it can feel like it's a collective thing. So it feels like, that's why it feels like it's a tyrant, because it feels like it's a collective thing, like it's not even our own mind.
Yeah.
Okay, anything more there?
Not for me.
Okay, number 6. I don't remember who
I
read.
don't remember either.
I think it's your turn, Sonia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Eloisa just read.
Oh yes,
Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, 6. The miracle is a sign that the mind has chosen to be led by me in Christ's service. The abundance of Christ is the natural result of choosing to follow him. All shallow roots must be uprooted because they are not deep enough to sustain you. The illusion that shallow roots can be deepened and thus made to hold is one of the distortions on which the reverse of the golden rule rests. As these false underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable. However, nothing is less stable than an upside down orientation, nor can anything that upholds it, nor can anything that holds it upside down be conducive to increased stability.
Mhm. Okay, so so it's talking a lot about stability. So you can think about a foundation as stability, something stable that you build on. You don't want to build on the illusion of shallow roots because those can easily be eroded away, pulled out. And it's talking about, I think it's kind of giving a little bit of an analogy between the ego thought system and God's thought system. And so the ego thought system is basically imaginary. That's why it's an illusion. And we think that they can serve as a stable foundation, but they can't. It's a distortion. And that distortion, let's see, is on which the reverse of the golden rule rests. And what's the golden rule?
Do unto others as you would, yeah.
Yeah, have them do,
Yeah.
exactly. Because giving is receiving. So, so if it's distorting that, the ego wants us to believe that no, we can get away with murder, because because I can escape the laws of the world and I can be above the law and do whatever I want, and that's what a tyrant really stands for.
Sounds like our former president.
So the idea is that, that's a distortion of the golden rule. I mean, giving is receiving. There's no way that there can be imbalance. You see what I'm saying? And so the importance here is to recognize that we can't try to, what's the word? We can't try to cheat God, we can't try to play around. Because, sometimes I remember growing up and sometimes we talk about, well, if God is all forgiving, well, what the heck? I'm just gonna do whatever the hell I want, and in the end, I'm just gonna ask God to forgive me. All is good.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you kind of have a plan there to kind of like deceive God, as if your intention doesn't matter here. But that's only because we believe in a punishing God. We believe we grew up believing that you had to do certain things to show that you were good, and that's obedient to God, and that would be rewarded with heaven and not hell. But I think there's also something in the New Testament when Jesus talks about the seed and spreading the seed on ground where the roots can actually grow deep, and otherwise birds come and they eat the seed, or the roots are shallow and they don't grow, and that kind of thing. So and so I think it's saying here in number 5, as these false underpinnings are given up. So we have to recognize that trying to, what's the word? We can't pull one over on God, okay? I mean, once we recognize, okay, I am completely responsible for everything that I do, and everything that I do is just going to come back to me. Then I'm kind of ready. I think I'm kind of ready to really think about choosing forgiveness and really taking the healing of my mind seriously. And that's what 5 says, that as these false underpinnings are given up, the equilibrium is temporarily experienced as unstable because previously we had been very very much placing our confidence on these illusions that we made up on our head. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to make sure I get to heaven this way and not hell. And once we let go all of that, it's as if there's instability, precisely because the stability we were giving to was illusions, and illusions, don't last. So as we start letting go of the illusions, it feels as if the ground we're standing on is unstable. But it's no less stable than seeing things upside down to begin with. I mean, it's it's a little bit like saying, okay, I thought I was living on Earth all this time, but I was really living on the moon where there's like hardly no gravity, and I was upside down the whole time. And now that I come to Earth and I'm right side up, well, that feels really weird. That doesn't feel to me like it's stable at all. But well, there was nothing stable about being upside down in the moon either. So, nor can anything that holds it upside down be conductive to increase stability. Yeah. So, the miracle is a sign that the mind is chosen to be led by me in Christ's service. So it just tells us, the miracles tell us that the mind is on the right track, and that it is choosing true authority and not tyrannical authority. And so it's a support to the mind flipping itself right side up, and recognizing that that is the true state of the mind, true orientation. Okay. And that the true orientation is abundance. I mean, we are so used to living in scarcity, to actually believe that the natural state is abundance. It's like completely upside down. But it's true, it's true. God is everything, and God gives us everything. And it's about letting go of everything else that would deny that would, thoughts that would say, no, that's not true. You're on your own. You're separate from God. Okay. Okay. So is there anything else there? I think this is the end of that section.
That's good.
Okay. So I think we can stop here. It's so we just finished section 5 and wholeness and spirit. And next time we'll go to section 6, the illusion of needs.
That sounds good.
Yep. Okay. Okay. So thank you, everyone, and join us next time. Bye.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Bye.
Same. Bye.